We're in the context here of Bundanoon in the Southern Highlands of New South Wales as part of a men's weekend away. Hubert, thank you for being willing to share a little bit about your story.
Thank you, Peter.
You had a good morning, nice walk?
Yeah, very nice walk in Bundanoon. Beautiful day, and no wind at all, so it was crystal clear. Got some great photographs.
Fantastic.
Yeah, fantastic.
So why don't we start? Share with us a little bit about your professional background.
Well, from a professional background, I started off in the accounting profession with a chartered firm, and worked mostly in the fast-moving consumer goods industries. So I worked with organisations such as, let's see, rank Xerox, then there was BP, there was Nestle, Sara Lee, with Foster's.
Did you sample a lot of your product?
All the way through, yeah. And then I went to the dark side and I joined Woolworths. I was there for quite a long time. Did a small stint for a healthcare group with IPN, which was part of the Sonic Healthcare Group. They ran GP medical practices. And most recently in the not-for-profit space, I've been working as the head of finance and IT for Uniting Resources, now called the Synod Office. And I've been with them for 6.5 years, and I just finished with them on Friday. 5 p.m. Yeah.
Right. Celebrating with this weekend away.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so a diversified range of industries.
Yeah.
Now, Hubert, I think that we might have met in 2009. Is that right?
That's correct. It was in 2009. And the reason I met Peter was that, and this is again a confidential thing, but it was a segue from yesterday's interview with Andrew, that his wife Penny sponsored my wife in AA, and at the time, and Andrew and Penny invited both Katrina and me to a Smith lecture, and the only reason I came along was an economist who was speaking, because I worked in the industry. So it was actually Professor Ian Harper speaking about faith in the GFC. In 2009, so I thought, oh, that'll be interesting. So that's how I first met Andrew and Penny, and Peter was there welcoming me at the door, it was a very interesting evening, and then Penny invited us thereafter I think it was a few weeks later, to come along to your place.
Yeah.
To see whether we were at all interested to hear more about the Bible.
Okay.
Which I knew nothing about.
So how would you, if you can cast your mind back 11 years ago to then, and I remember that meeting, it was a great occasion down by the water at the Museum of Contemporary Art.
That's correct, yeah.
How would you describe, if you can recall, what you'd say your spiritual beliefs were back then?
I think for a lot of my, so during the 20s and 30s and 40s, it probably was vacillating between atheistic and agnostic. Yeah, I think it was a difficult time, because even my sons were asking me about my faith, and that was a challenge to try and respond to that. And I think, especially my older boy Nicholas was, I think, somewhat disappointed that I didn't have. I was fairly atheistic at the time. Yeah.
Okay. And so obviously a lot's happened since then. So
yes.
Perhaps just walk us through some of the key moments in your, spiritual journey, say, since then.
Right. Okay. Well, so coming to that home group, and interestingly enough, it was very welcomed by Peter and Bettina. And Al was the one who was teaching about the Bible, so you couldn't get a better teacher of the Bible. It's good that he did a marketing degree, because I think he did a very good job with the product that he had, and communicated it in a very clear way, as you've all noticed, of course, today. So, and I thought, well, and he's a similar age to me, so I could relate to him in that regard too. And it was a very friendly, everybody was very welcoming, which I think very much appealed. So I thought, oh, yeah, they're a nice bunch of people, I'd like to be friends with them. John Best was there, he immediately befriended me, And it was amazing how much I revealed about myself just in that short space of time, just one-on-one. So
happens when you meet a doctor, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so the home group, and then, yeah, so how did things progress from there?
So I continued going there, and then John, I think, if my memory serves me correctly, John was doing a presentation for the Bridge Street Fellowship and invited me along at that presentation. And so here are all these men from the banking and finance area, which is not quite my area, but I thought, well, I can relate to some of these men. Again, they welcomed me with open arms. So I thought, yeah, I'd like to come back to this, because it was really, really good to be in a men's group, talking about more personal things. That was the other thing that really appealed to me. So I just invited myself to come back to those.
So do you recall how it felt, I guess, coming as someone who was sort of still very much early exploring things? Did you feel kind of accepted?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've since coming along, I think generally there are about 20% of those who attend who are not of a Christian faith, and I, of course, was one of them at that time. Yeah, very much welcomed, and yeah, was starting to learn a bit more about the Christian faith during those, all those experiences. But yeah, it was a journey to find out more about it. So I was very open-minded in my journey. Yeah.
And perhaps if you can maybe just reflect, what were some of the things perhaps you appreciated about that setting?
So probably what was the best for me, because I think being respected as an intelligent person, that I was never pressured along the way to become a Christian. I was very much, it was very much being informed, encouraging me to come back and enjoy the experience of the company that I had. I think John Best was always asking me along the way, so where are you in your journey of faith? Because it took me about 3 years to actually become a Christian. It was only on one particular day, Al and I were doing Bible readings together, and Al asked me one Monday morning, so where are you with your faith journey? I thought, well, gee, if I were to be a Christian, I'm a really bad Christian, because I'm not living it in a very good way. And he said, well, if that's what's holding you back, you'll never become one, because you're never going to make that level. And then really understanding and appreciating the fact that we are forgiven for our sins. So and that Christ died on the cross for us to forgive us. So I thought, okay, well, in that case, I'm a Christian. So that was my leap of faith, and the leap of faith would have been that big had I done it earlier. I think it was a much smaller leap at that point in time with what I'd learned. And then 2 days later, he interviewed me something like this at a breakfast where John Anderson was in front of a breakfast. With a whole lot of other people. So it was.
You mentioned, Hubert, that when you first came to that Smith lecture, that it was in the context of Penny sponsoring Katrina through AA. So along that journey was also the parallel journey of your wife's struggle with alcohol. Yes. Can you share a little bit about that?
Sure. And again, this is the confidentiality aspect. But now I've shared it with quite a few others as well here. So my wife there's usually something behind an ism, and in this case it was alcoholism for my wife. But she was an adoptee. It was a very challenging thing for her. Great parents that she's had, and as a result of them knowing that they were going to have Katrina as a baby, at the time that she was born, they actually became her adopted mother became pregnant, and so she's got a sister who's actually a biological child 8 months younger than she is. So that was always a challenge for her. Great relationship with every one of them, but we will never understand the feeling of abandonment, which was the key thing for Katrina, and that especially came through once we had our own kids. She always had a need for drinking. I didn't really sense it. I thought she just enjoyed it, but that became worse and worse over time. And it's actually been a really long time where it became a huge problem in the last 15 years. it got progressively worse. My oldest son left at the age of 19. He couldn't handle it anymore, became very independent as a result of that. And then my youngest son left several years ago. And then in the end I couldn't manage it for any longer, because it just changed her personality that much. She was a different person. And anyone who's met her when she's not drinking, she's the most wonderful, generous, kind person under the sun, but she's just a different person that you cannot live with when she's under the influence of alcohol. And so, yeah, as a result of that, 18 months ago I separated from her. Very sadly, so she died under tragic circumstances a couple of months ago, early August, from an accident related to her alcoholism, yeah, very tragic. But you know, my faith is such that, you know, I believe that she had a strong faith as well. As part of, she was with me along that journey, coming to home group in particular, contributing in terms of, you know, meals and everything else, which everybody valued. But she was just a very generous, kind person, and I believe, you know, the fact that she's got a faith fills me with great hope, and that I will see her in heaven as a result of it. But I very much separated the disease from the person quite a few years ago, and that makes it easier for me to appreciate the loving feelings that I have towards her today. Yeah.
Okay. Obviously there's a lot there, Hubert,
Sure.
you've just shared, and we might have the chance to pick up on a little bit of what
Sure.
you've just shared, but I will ask one last question.
Sure.
So, Hubert, you've been coming along to the Men's Fellowship, and you shared how that helped your own spiritual journey.
Yeah.
How have you found inviting now other men to the group?
I've actually found it a very easy experience, and I probably should have been doing it a lot more. Sometimes it's in hindsight that I think, wow, that was such a great presentation. Such and such, you know, would have really enjoyed that or appreciated it. Some of them have not been Christian men that I've invited along. Others may have had a faith. I don't know how serious necessarily, but you know, I look at the speaker and I go, oh, I think so, you know, a particular person would really appreciate to hear from that person, and I'm very open with them. They'll talk about their faith as part of that journey. So there are no false pretenses, but I said, you know, you'll find this particular person interesting to listen to. So I found it a very easy way to.
And the general response from.
Very. Even those that subsequently have not taken up the faith or followed it have appreciated it and have enjoyed the experience. So you know, this is all about the control message this morning. You know, you just got to put it out there and let God do the rest. You know? So.
Well, thank you, Hubert, for sharing with us this morning. And
thanks,
your friendship has been a real joy, not just to Bettina and I, but to many men in the fellowship.
And with you and your family.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Peter.